What's going on, everybody? Yeah. Here we go. 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 Hope everybody's having an amazing and absolutely amazing. What's today? Wednesday? Wednesday. Wednesday. What's going on, everybody? Hey. Thank y'all for joining us. We're going to let everybody come on in, get comfortable. We're going to have an amazing conversation tonight. I hope that everybody, wherever you are, is gearing up to celebrate Father's Day. Take your dad out to his favorite spot. Make sure he knows that he's appreciated. If you got a surrogate father, if you got somebody in your life that has served as a father figure, let them know they're appreciated. So shouts out to all the dads. We celebrate Father's Day. And that brings me to this point that tonight we're going to have an amazing, hey, hello. We're going to have an amazing conversation with one of the most amazing men that I know, Mr. Kenneth Braswell. The brother is an absolute legend. You're going to get a chance to hear more about the work that he's doing. And he's somebody that I've learned so much from. So we're going to give him a second to come on in. There he is. The man, the myth, just has entered the chat. So I'm going to give him a second. And Ken, if you'll just send a request to join. Let me see if I can do it from my end. Nope. Okay. So Ken, if you'll shoot a request to join, we'll bring you up and we will get started. Everybody, let us know in the chat where you're checking in from this evening. If you're joining us, where you all are, want to know who's representing tonight. We're so grateful for you taking the time out of your Wednesday night to be here with us and just chat, man. And so also, if you're familiar with Ken's work, please get ready and prepare your questions too. So if you have questions for him, if you have questions for me, if you're a dad, if you know a dad that needs support, we are here to be of service, man. So I'm just really excited about this conversation. So grateful for all of y'all who are joining. Utah in the building. What's happening? Utah, it's beautiful out there. Shouts out to Utah. Who else is checking in? Let's see who else. Let's see, Ken. If you send a request to join, let's see. Yes, so send a request, Ken, to join. If you click on it, if you click on the live, it should send a request to join the chat. Ken, let's see if I can add this. No, I don't think I can do it on my end. So it should have something, a request. So not through the chat, but it should have a request to go live. Anybody else in the community, if y'all got some tips on how we can make this easier and streamline it, please let us know in the chat. New York in the building, Michigan in the building. That's what's up. I'll be in New York soon. I'll be in New York really soon. Excited. I love it up there. Michigan. I love y'all too. We were just in DC meeting with a couple of congressional reps from Michigan. One of my favorite people in the world is Rashida Tlaib, the great congressman from the great state of Michigan, serving Detroit. So we love her to life. And Michigan is a special place, man. So Ken, if you click on there, there should be an option at the bottom for you to request to join the conversation or the stream. Let me see if I can. There we go. Bam. Let's see if this works. All right, Ken, let me know if you got motion on your side.
Yeah, I
We
think
did
what
it. We
yeah, I
did
think
it.
so
We did it.
you finally doing something that I've never done before, live Instagram. And
Listen,
so
there had to be something, Ken. There had to be something because you've done a lot.
yeah,
You've
so
done a lot.
I was actually on my desktop trying to log in and it was live up there, but it wouldn't allow me to push it. And so I was like, you know what, maybe this is a phone thing. So that's why I flipped to the phone. But now you got my green backdrop. You don't have my New York Knicks backdrop that I had that I was wanted the people to see, you know.
Listen, listen. We got it. We got a lot to talk about, but I do have to. I know that this is big for you, man. Being a New Yorker, bringing the city this championship after 50 plus years, man. What a time to be alive, man. And I know that your heart is full. I know that you are a basketball fan, a basketball dad. Okay, so there's a lot of love for the Knicks in the chat.
All right.
Um,
I'm feeling y'all. I'm feeling y'all.
you know what I'm
Give it to me.
saying?
Give it up.
Exactly.
Give it up.
Drop the love for the Knicks. So let me say this. I have to do this because Ken and I are friends, and we talk a lot about life. We talk a lot about the work. And this is just going to be a conversation, but I have to just take a moment to give this brother his flowers. And just formally introduce everybody who's joining us tonight to Mr. Kenneth Braswell, who is the CEO and founder of Fathers Incorporated. And I often refer to him as the godfather of this fatherhood work, as we really made a concerted effort to center fatherhood in our theory of change. Ken has been such a wealth of resources, of knowledge, of giving his time selflessly to support us. Man, he always shows up for us. And like I say, you see a lot of people moving in the fatherhood space now, and they're doing amazing work. But the work that myself, the people, and I could call the role, but none of us would be able to do this work if it was not for you being a pioneer, brother. We just want to say thank you. So y'all drop some love to some hearts from my man, the one and only Mr. Ken Braswell, joining us tonight. Village
Thank
Voices.
Thank you, man.
Exactly.
I appreciate you so much, man. It's like I am inspired by you, sir. I told you that I think the first time I met you and saw the work that you were doing, and so touched by your story. And have always, you and I, like I said the other day, we probably cross each other across the country several times over the last several years. And we always said, at some point, God's going to create an intersect for us. And when that happens, we both going to be ready. And I
Yep.
think that crossroad has happened because
Yes,
right
sir.
now you got me on a whole different kind of fire, man. And you got my staff on fire about
Good,
stuff that we
good,
were
good,
doing.
good.
And so
Listen,
we're
man,
excited, man.
we were so pleased to have you join us. So for those of y'all who've been keeping up with this journey over the past week or so, uh, Ken, along with his entire team, not his entire team, because he's got a big team, but a part of his team, several members of his team joined us in Washington, D.C. for our third annual Dad's Got Something to Say Lobby Day, which we brought together fathers, almost 30 fathers from around the country with a multitude of experiences to share their stories, to share their hearts with Congress and apply pressure. And really honestly show up as men and fathers and demand um, that our country do better by our mothers and babies, and that fathers are centered in not only part of this solution but across the board. So I don't know, Ken. Maybe we'll start there. Maybe why don't you share just a little bit about your perspective, like what were some of the takeaways from you, and then what do you think that we can do or what we need to do to continue to further making sure that that fathers are centered in not just uh, prenatal and postnatal and maternal health, but across the board in legislation and policy.
So this particular issue has touched my heart. It touched my heart before now. But, I think being in the room, listening to those brothers, including yourself, and I've heard you tell your story, but listening to those brothers tell their story about the loss of their loved ones at a time that was supposed to be the most precious celebratory time in their lives, and hearing the pain of that loss in their voices at that table, it just constructed for me or solidified the construction of a narrative in my head that is so counter to what society says about men.
Yeah,
That we don't
yeah,
care, that we're unavailable, that we're not there. That is an absolute lie. Now, don't get me wrong. There ain't some of us that ain't doing the right thing, but those some don't represent the whole. Right?
absolutely.
It is more brothers out here that is trying to find a way to do the right thing, struggling just like everybody else. And not only do we love our dads, but we absolutely adore and love our moms and our children. And so being in this space has allowed me. I was telling somebody the other day about you, and I was like, this brother has expanded me again, right? I
Mm,
always get expanded in this work, right? Because when we started 22 years ago, this work was about building the capacity of fathers to be better equipped to be available in the lives of their children and their families, and dealing with issues like employment and child support and DV prevention and health and all of those kinds of things. And every time I get into a different room, I get expanded a little bit because I realize that even those things are not the totality of what we deal with,
Yeah.
just like moms. And so when I walk into a housing space, there are guys that break my heart in a housing space that will call shelters in a car with their children because they are single dads and they can't find a shelter. And the shelter tells them, we'll take your kids, but we ain't going to take you.
Yeah.
Whether we're in a mental health conversation and we're talking about, how to keep brothers, sane and sober, to think right and stuff. And even and then in this space where we're talking about, our moms, specifically our black moms,
Yeah.
losing their lives on the table when 80% of those losses are preventable. That's an absolute it's crazy. I don't even know another word to like
Yeah.
describe that. But the families that they leave behind, and primarily men, who are now taking care of their children, but they're taking care of their children and having to navigate this space without the same level of resources for them, right, to be able to do that effectively. And so, them turning their pain into purpose
Yeah.
is inspiring. That is
Yeah.
what you've done. Turn your pain into purpose. And this purpose right here is about ensuring that, the phrase that sticks in my head over the couple of days we were together is all mothers deserve not only to carry their babies into the hospital, but to carry their babies out of the hospital. It is a tragedy when you carry your baby in and you don't have the ability to carry them out. It's just like hearing the narrative of those fathers who said, there's nothing more painful than walking into the hospital as my wife carries my baby and having to walk out of the hospital carrying my baby without my wife. That was just, it's heartbreaking. And so we have to stand up our voices. We have to raise those voices. We have to tell our stories. Our stories, those stories that you tell, are not absent of Kira. Her story is at the center of what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Your boy's story is at the center of what you're talking about. And someday they are going to have to tell that story, and they will be able to tell a story with respect to you. I watched my dad honor my mom every day of his life, every day of our life. And so it means so much to do the work with you, because as I'm doing the work with you, it is also supporting the work that I'm doing. And it is also making me more conscious about the urgency of getting fathers in the right places
Yeah.
so that they can advocate not only for themselves and for their children, but they can advocate for the women in their lives as well.
Absolutely, brother, man. Thank you so much for that. Um, yeah, it was like I said, man, I was so grateful to have you there. Because what I knew going into that couple of days is that we needed your energy, we were gonna need your wisdom, we were gonna need your perspective. And I value your strategic approach to everything that you do. And
Mhm.
so it was important for me because I do this. I've been in this fight, and I'm doing it, and I'm working so hard. But to have your wisdom and expertise to look at and say, okay, and survey the
Mhm.
landscape
Mhm.
and see what we're doing and how we can improve it and how we can also, for you to see when our approach, then also see how we can find room and opportunities for the work that you all are doing to be integrated into this stuff.
Mhm.
As we expand, as because I think we're at a pivotal moment, right? Where we have the attention, and it's like this thing. I have this term, like, here's the thing. I don't code switch. Like I believe when I show up, I'm gonna bring the hood with me, and that means bringing the people that I believe in,
Mhm.
and making sure that they have opportunities, that they have access, that they understand what's going on. And at the end of the day, also too, not just the other thing, Ken, is I know about you is you're gonna tell me, like, you're gonna high five, you're gonna hug me, I'm getting it right. But if you say you are gonna tell me if I'm not right, you're gonna
Mhm.
tell me, bro, you're not, that ain't
Mhm.
it. That
Mhm.
ain't it. We need to course correct. Like, this is
Mhm.
how we're doing. This is what you're missing.
Mhm.
And so I'm grateful for that. And so I want to. That brings me to my next point, is that if you would just take a moment to tell the folks that are joining us who may not be familiar with what you all do and the services you provide, at Fathers Incorporated to understand what exactly it is and even potentially how they can support.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to say something to what you just said, and I've been saying this a lot to my staff and to others. Um, Life, in and of itself, is God's opportunity to correct your course
Hmm.
every opportunity.
Mm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's what life is. And
Yeah.
so you walking along in life and stumbling here, having support here is all his opportunities to correct your course to
Yeah.
get to your goals and to get to your purpose in life. And so when you're equally yoked with those kinds of people who think that way, you are
Mm.
always trying to make sure that you are equally yoked with someone who's going to help you correct your course in the right way. That's even at my age, at my seasoned age. Just like with you, I am always asking God, God, is this somebody I should be following? Is this
Mm.
somebody I should be paying attention to? Is it
Mm-hmm.
something about what he's doing that's going to get me closer to my goals?
Yeah.
However, is it something that I have to do for him that's going to get him closer to his goal? What's my assignment here with this, with Charles and for Kira for Moms and for Kira for Dads? But our work started. I work specifically with Fathers Incorporated started 22 years ago. We started our work in New York. We started our work with creating Fathers Incorporated in 2004 when I towards really doing technical assistance for organizations who were trying to do fatherhood work. I was working in the basement of my house, bro. I started Fathers Incorporated after one of the worst moments of my life, and that was considering suicide. That was considering I was at a bad, dark space in my life. And I said to God in the moment, if you don't give me something to get up off of this couch, this is where they'll find me. That was my prayer to him. And I sat on that couch for like 11 hours, and he softly spoke to me and said, simply, speak to the hearts of men. And I sat there trying to figure out what that meant, speak to the hearts of men. And I got up and I sat in front of my computer. And about 7 hours later, I had a 15-page perspective of Fathers Incorporated.
Amazing.
And that's where I started. And so 14 years ago, 12 years ago now, we moved from the state of New York, where I was the director of the New York State Fatherhood Initiative, to Atlanta, primarily because I just got tired of shoveling snow, because, I just couldn't do it no more. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so we was at a perfect time. My son was about ready to leave grade school and go into no, he was going into first grade. My daughter was going into high school. We were actually between contracts at the time.
Yeah.
And my wife said, are we going to wait till we get the next contract? And I was like, no, God is like, get up and get out of here now. We'll figure it out when we get to Atlanta.
Wow.
So we actually moved to Atlanta, not only with my primary family, but my second primary family, which was my youngest daughter and her mom.
Yeah.
They moved to Atlanta when we moved to Atlanta, and all of them believing in my dream. All of them believing in my purpose, because we did not have the contract when we moved here. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then we got here, and literally about 30 days after we got here, we learned we got the contract again. That contract was for Fathers Incorporated to be the contractor for the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. We got that grant in 2010, and we still hold that grant today. We've had that
Amazing.
grant for 14 years. And through that grant, we have managed over $75 million across the country. And the numbers just speak for itself when you think about it. So we
Yeah.
have 15 staff on the ground that do direct service work here in Metro Atlanta, but I have another 35 to 40 across the country that do some of the
Amazing.
other elements of the work around the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse's work. We do a robust media campaign with the Ad Council. So if you ever see ads while you're watching football or basketball or on TV and you see Fatherhood Gov underneath that,
Yep.
all of that comes out of my office.
Wow.
We go to about 15 conferences a year. We create several products, research products, briefs, and other things throughout the year. And we have a robust social media platform. Our Facebook page, for instance, our fatherhood.gov Facebook page has 250,000 people over it. We built
Amazing.
that. We built that platform
Amazing.
for the federal government. And then the last thing, and I always tell people when I say HHS, people's ears perk up and it's like, oh, you work for the man. Nah, nah. We we operate a contract. We're contractors, right? I often, Charles, tell people the story. I think I said it to you. As a contractor, if I was a general contractor and you said, I want you to put the kitchen on the second floor, and I kept saying to you, Charles, it don't make sense to put the kitchen on the second floor, and I could give you all the reasons why the kitchen shouldn't be on the second floor. But if you're really adamant enough about it and you say, I want the kitchen on the second floor, as a contractor, sooner or later, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to put the kitchen on the second floor. I told you not to put it up there, but we're going to put it up there. Sooner or later, you're going to have to pay me more to take it down and put it back up there, but I'm going to do what you said. That's what a contractor is, and that's how we look at the work we do. It is not political for me. It is
Hmm.
being in position to do the work that I know will impact families and impact children. And lastly, in addition to that, about 6 years ago, we got a grant from the Office of Family Assistance to do direct services here in Metro Atlanta. We finished that contract about a year ago now. We served 1,000 fathers here in Metro Atlanta in
Amazing.
direct service with all kinds of outcomes and outputs and impacts. All of that stuff you can find in our impact report on our website. And then we applied for that grant again. We didn't get it. However, we got the what they call the sister grant to that, which is a grant that promotes relationships and marriage. And we actually flipped the
Wow.
script on them because when we wrote the grant, we actually wrote it as a bridge to the fatherhood grant to be able to work with co-parents. And so we
Okay.
actually wrote a whole new curriculum called Dad and Company, strengthening the co-parenting team. Fathers are still our primary client as they come in, but they have to identify their co-parenting team. That
Okay.
co-parenting team could be the mother of their children, could be her mother, his brother, his cousin, his coach. But our goal now is not only to strengthen him, but strengthen and help him identify and then strengthen the co-parenting team around him for the very thing that you are advocating for, Charles. It shouldn't matter how much a father cares for the mother of his child, whether they live together and or married. It does not matter, right? It doesn't matter. And that's the strengthening of the co-parenting team. It
Yeah.
is for life. You guys have a relationship to raise this child, and it really is not demanding of where you live, and it's not demanding of
The
your marital
partnership.
status and your relationship status. None of that matters. And even in the unfortunate incident that a child may leave this earth, your relationship is still the same because you have to carry on the memories of that child after that,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And
mm.
so that's the work now. We've expanded now. And we always say we didn't shift because people think, oh, you got that grant, you shifted. Like, no, we didn't shift. We expanded because what we realized is doing the work specifically with fathers was a good thing. But until we found a way to actually do the same work with their co parenting team and other members of their family, we weren't going to have the greatest impact we could have.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so, listen, Ken, like, and that's why I tell people you to go. Like, this is like what you have done and the impact that you've had on communities, and not only that, the ripples in the pond that the work that you and your team have done, it's really incredible. And I want you all, if you all have questions for Ken or myself, please prepare and go ahead and drop those in the chat. Ken, what I want, my question for you, is that you've been doing this work over decades, right?
Mhm.
You've seen so much. What is it that has you most hopeful right now in this moment about the state of fatherhood and where we are going with I would call it this movement? to empower families and subsequently empower families. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, two things. I've heard you talk about, your long range goals in eradicating um, maternal morbidity on the table and by 2030. I've heard you say that a couple of times. And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh man, that's a great thing to strive for. And it's okay to strive for. That's not how I view my work. And it's as a result of something one of my mentors said to me years ago. I am most assured that I get the chance to change one father at a time. One
Mm,
at a time.
yeah,
Even if that class happens to be 25, 30, 50, or a class of 100 like we did
yeah.
in March of this year, in my mind's eye, it is one at a time. And as long as I can continually help
Wow.
one, I never know when I'm going to help the one dad who is raising the savior for our community. I never know
Ooh.
if that's my task, right? And
Ooh.
so I look at each one of them as this man that's standing in front of me could possibly be the person I should be serving, because it has absolutely nothing to do with him. It's going to have to do with the child that he is responsible for raising, and the best way to ensure that he remains in that child's life is that he remains in a healthy, loving co-parenting relationship with the mother of his child. And so that is the thing that I'm most assured of. The thing that keeps me up at night is the same thing that I spoke to you about. I think we were in DC when we talked about that. And that is sustainability of my organization, right? Because in order to keep serving that one, I have to be available for that one when that one needs me the most in his life. There is nothing worse than a not for profit not being available for the people that they claim to serve in the moment that those people need
The
them the
most.
most, right? So, sustainability for me is the thing that keeps me up at night, because I'm always churning as I'm serving that one. How do I make sure that Fathers Incorporated extends beyond my tombstone, right?
Oof.
Because it cannot die with me. The sustainability of the organization has to be rock solid so that somebody wrote in the chat, legacy. The legacy carries on without me. The
Yeah.
agency, the work, my passion, all of the things that that I've grounded into this space has to carry on without me, right? So that I can ensure that my time on earth was to ensure that you continue to serve the one that's coming. You don't know he's coming. That one doesn't necessarily have to come when I'm here.
Yeah.
That one might not come until after I'm here. But if I don't build the apparatus for our agency to be available to do that, here's an extension of this, Charles. That one could be somebody you're serving. And you could
Yeah.
have reached out for me to help you, and I wouldn't have been available or not able to help you. And that one person you're supposed to be touching, you would not have been able to do
Yeah.
it if we
Wow.
both weren't obedient to the call.
Wow. 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 Nah, thank you for that. And so, Ken, you said something, man, that made me think about another conversation we had. And I think we were sitting at your office when I was out there visiting with you, and you were talking about basically it's fathers, but the fathers are the pathway to ultimately impact children. And that really is what the core of your work. Kind of speak to that so the audience understands that part of your theory and your work, right? Is that they are the conduit to which you are ultimately serving. Because you touched on it a little bit with what you were saying about serving that one that impacts the future, right?
Hmm.
But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, because
You know,
that's so powerful.
this conversation is always a tender conversation, right? Because there's this, um, thought out there that we don't need men, we don't need fathers. I don't need a man. I always tell people who say that I don't need a man. My response to them is, you may not need a man, but your children need a man. You can go on about life without a man if that's what you choose
If that's
to.
what you choose to do.
But going on without a man for your children is a whole different. decision that you're making that is a selfish decision. It has nothing to do with you caring for your children. It has to do with you thinking about yourself. And so for us, I walk slowly in that space when I think about it because, I explain it in a couple of different scenarios just so people can absorb it and not feel a certain kind of way about it, right?
Yeah.
One of them is when I was growing up, Charles, in New York, in Brooklyn, New York. My mother didn't have a whole lot, but she gave us what she had the ability to give us. And one of the things my siblings and I absolutely loved was sugary cereals, right? The Fruit Loops, the Fruity Pebbles,
Sugar Smacks, all of them. Yep.
anything that has sugar in it, we
Yeah,
we
yeah,
needed
absolutely.
it. And that's what she didn't give us anything, but we always had the sugary cereals in our cabinets, and not
Yeah,
the no frills in the plastic bag ones, like the real deal ones that
yeah,
you
yeah,
eat your
yeah.
cereal and you put the box in front of you and you read the box, as you're eating your cereal. But there were times where we had the cereal in the cabinet and we didn't have any milk. And we would say to our mother, hey, she would say, go get some cereal. And we'd be like, we can't eat the cereal. We don't have any milk.
Mm.
And my mother would say, you better put some water on that. And we were like, nah, that's not, it's whatever, right? But what I've come to learn is you can still be nourished and you can still eat cereal with water, but it was not intended to be
Wasn't it?
eaten with water, right? And so when you think about mothers and fathers, yeah, either one of us can do it without you. It's not going to be as tasteful.
Not how it was intended.
It changes the outcome, right, of what you're doing. And so you always have to kind of be, mindful of those things, that you have to do what is intended to be so you can get away from the societal context of how you want to
Let's go,
describe
Ken.
this,
Let's
right?
go, Ken.
You can
Let's
get
go.
away from the societal context with men ain't no good, blah. You can say all that you want. At
Say
the
what you want.
end of the day, the recipe for your children is the same because the biology of how they got here never changes. 100%. I say this all the time. There is no such thing in this world as a fatherless child. There is no such thing as a fatherless child. 100% of all biological children born on the face of this earth has a father. The question isn't if he exists. The question is where he
Where he
exists.
exists.
And if you never ask the question where, you make the assumption that he doesn't exist. The problem with that is we tell our children that their father does not exist. The impact of you telling your children that their father does not exist is they begin to believe you and they have no explanation for the hole left in their heart by the absence of their father because you told them that there is no answer to that pain, right? And so when we think about the positioning of mom and dad, there's a lot of different reasons they should be parenting together, whether it is spiritual, emotional, biological, chemically. You can go across all the sciences. Every science will give you a reason why both mom and dad should be raising their children, regardless of the circumstance that is available for them to do so. Now, we get it because it's the thing that we always have to say, right? Our work is not only dad centered, but it's also safety centered, right? We
Yeah.
take into consideration safety. We are not trying to unequally yoke parents who will find themselves in any level of danger across the board,
Sure.
from mom, child, and dad in many and emerging situations today. It could be either one of the three of them that is in a dangerous situation with respect to their relationship. So all of the protocols that we put into place takes into consideration that we're ensuring that we are making sure that we are connecting folks in a way and not guaranteeing, but we are taking into consideration safety,
Yeah.
for right. And so because of that safety, mechanism, it is once you remove the issue of safety, now you can get to what I always say is the main thing. Keep the main
Yeah.
thing, main thing. The main thing is children.
Yeah.
Keep yourself out of the equation because once you have a child, your life is no longer your own. It's not. That is what you give up when you have children because the gain that you get is so surmountable. You get
Right.
children.
Right.
So don't think that when you get something, you don't have to give something up, right? And so when you get children,
Come
you have
on,
to
man.
give up your life. You gotta stay out I ain't gonna say you gotta completely stay out the clubs because I was still running the streets. I ain't gonna say you gotta still give out your vices, but you can't overdo your vices.
Right.
You still don't mean that you can't have fun. Your fun just has to be in moderation. You can still live, and
Yeah.
living is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your life. Your life belongs to your children the minute they hit the space, right? And I think that if people can get away and start thinking about parenting and relationships in those ways, Charles, I think our community would be better for it. The question is, when does that learning start? Right? When do we begin to start talking to children about family formation and how do they prepare children to be ready for any scenario that comes about, even having a child and losing their loved one on the table with their child? How do they then advocate for those women, for their moms, for their sisters, for their aunties in those spaces? And how do they show up in a way that brings healthy manhood with them?
No, listen. Thank you, man. Listen, that was. Listen, I love you to life, man. Like, and that, I love you to life, man. Like, every time I get to share space with you, I walk away with so much and so full. We actually got some questions coming in the chat for you. Can I
I
know
saw that.
we asked for 30 minutes, and if you got a couple more minutes, let's see if we can get this question. So this individual asked a question. If you have any other questions, um please put them in the chat as well, and we'll see if Ken may have time to answer. But this question that was asked is education included? I think this is for you, Ken. Is education around childbirth included in your programming for dads?
So, absolutely, we have one module in our curriculum. Actually, in all of our curriculums, we have in each of them a module that speaks to early childhood development. And it kind of starts with what fathers should know about what fathers should know and when should they know it in the development of their child, even prenatal, right? Even like, so she says to him on any given night, I'm pregnant. What should he know at that moment? Or what doesn't he know at that moment? What should he know at the in the middle of the first trimester? What should he know in the middle of the second? What should he know at the middle of the third?
Yeah.
What should he know when the baby gets here? What should we know in the first month? What should she know in the first 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? What should he know in early childhood development? I think our issue right now is we make the assumption that parents know,
Mm,
right? And the other thing is, we make the assumption that moms know.
right. Right. Man, that's so, listen, that's so real. Man, that's so real. We all
Right?
just trying to figure it out.
The only model that we have for parenting is how we were parented.
Very true.
It is the only model we have. And if that parenting lesson was dysfunctional, how you think about parenting is going to be dysfunctional. And so there has to be a modeling of healthy parental behavior
Absolutely.
that folks are around so that they can understand how to do what at particular times. It's probably one of the most annoying things that, I remember, growing up around, our elders, which is every time they would do something with the baby, they would always say, "Come over here, boy. I need you to understand how to put this diaper on. Let me show you how to put this diaper on." Or come over here. You see them sneezing? They would like it. It was like a
Yeah.
momentary thing. It was always, you need to know, you need to know, you need to know. Or in another scenario, Come in here, boy. Let me show you how I make these biscuits. Come over here. Let me show you how we iron these clothes. Show over here.
Yep.
Let me show you how to put the detergent in these clothes. Let me show
Mm,
you when to put the fresh. All of
mm.
that, like day to day movement,
Intentional.
right, was intentional so that
Intentional.
we can become more well rounded individuals. And I think today, and I'm not going to blame it all on technology, but technology does have an impact on the time that we spend as adults teaching our children about the things that they're going to need when they become adults. And
Yeah.
so I know that's a long way around answering your question about childbirth, but absolutely we take that into consideration, not only for him, but for her as well.
Yeah, and so and that's super powerful, Ken. And thank you for sharing that. We had another one come to me, and if people have questions and you'd like to send them to me directly, I'm happy to get those to Ken. So we had a question come up, and Ken, this one, it tells my heartstrings. But the question the sister asked was, what resources do you have or do you know of for mothers that are trying to escape mentally and physically abusive situations?
Oh, wow. And shout out to Jersey. I saw somebody mention something about her Jersey city cousin. Shout out to Jersey. Even though y'all the suburbs of New York, we still got love for Jersey. We love Jersey. That's why the Giants are still over there in your hands. So for those moms, and so we have two things in place. One is attached to our federal contract, we have a hotline. The hotline is for anybody. It is for dads, 1-800-187-4 dads 411. And that hotline is for anyone to call for any issues they may have, and that those particular staff will connect you with resources in your local area. For Fathers Incorporated, we have a resource mechanism called Papa University. We're still building that resource right now, but it is papauniversity.com, POPPA university.com. And we're building that resource for individuals to be able to go and get information, specific information for whatever is dealing with them. And in there is a whole piece in there about DV and abuse. And there's also our chat is called Sage. And if you go into Sage and you ask them that very question, Sage will actually answer that question and give you links to spaces where you can get information on that. Within our program, specifically for dads, we do have DV people on staff. We have DV consultants. We have child abuse and maltreatment consultants. We have mediators. We have life coaches. We have all of those things for our dads. In this new program, that program is now available to the moms. However, in order for them to receive those services for us, she has to be attached to a dad that is in our program.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And I know
No,
in a particular situation, that's not an optimal situation because you're
sure.
talking about doing that. But we do have people, case managers and other folks that can still get you into a place to be able to do that.
Okay.
But if you're asking that question, and I just need to say this, Charles,
Yeah, sure.
I don't know who's asking, but if you're asking this for yourself, always make sure you make yourself safe first and your children, whether it's calling 911, whether it's getting around your uh,
Absolutely.
family, whether it's remove yourself from the situation. Do not stay in the situation. Remove yourself from the situation so that you can get around people who can surround you, support you, and protect you. That's if it's you. If it's not you, take that information and pass it on to the person who you're talking about.
Ken, would you repeat the number again? And then if somebody would be kind enough to throw it in the chat so that people can have that resource, that would be wonderful.
Oh, make sure I got it right because I might
All
be
right, cool.
the whole wrong number.
All right,
Uh,
cool. And while you're doing that, I think Sarah Lynn had a comment, and she said that last year she found a document about the acknowledgement of paternity for Black American dads in 1866, right after the emancipation. Dads went around claiming their kids. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So
So
that's important context. This is a battle that fathers, and particularly Black fathers, have been fighting. Um, you know.
so let me tell you about Georgia. Let me tell you about Georgia.
Yep.
For those of you who live in Georgia, and that number is 1877 4 dad 411. I did get it
Okay.
right.
Okay.
4877 4 dad 4111.
Okay.
411, I'm sorry. So let me tell you about Georgia real quick. And you can find this information on our Papa University site. We'll give you all the information you need about a law called legitimation. The state of Georgia is the only state in the country that has a two-tier process for a non-married
Right.
father to become the legal father of his children. What that means is if a dad is not married when the child is born, he is not the legal father of that child. In order for him to become legal, he has to go through the legitimation process, which is a civil process. As a result of it being a civil process, there is a cost associated with it, as long as the legitimation is not contested by the custodial parent, mom, in more cases than none. If she contests it, he then has to get a lawyer, which could cost anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000 and more, in order to legitimize his children.
Yeah.
What that means, when the children are not legitimized, because it is the children that become legitimized, not the dad. Um, he has absolutely no rights to ask for custody. He has no rights to ask for parenting time. The child has no rights to his inheritance. He has no say in things like, perfect example. I'm glad you asked this, because this falls right into your space, Charles.
Yeah.
If you lived in the state of Georgia and you had the unfortunate incident of your girlfriend losing her life on the birthing table and the child still being alive, you as the biological father has absolutely no rights to that child. CPS will come in and scoop that child right up, or the paternal side, I'm sorry, the maternal
Mother's
side of
side.
the family, and you would have to fight for custody of that child in order, if you are the dad. There was a case that just took place not too long ago. A young lady passed away on, I can't remember what her name, the names are escaping me now, but they were in Atlanta, Georgia, and that happened to him.
Yep.
And eventually some lawyers came in and did some pro bono work for him, and eventually got the child legitimated, but it took him almost 6 months to
Yeah.
get, and the child was a preemie as well. I think the child was still in the hospital, couldn't make any decisions about the child. So if you are in the state of Georgia, and I know people that have lived in Georgia all their lives and got
Yep.
kids that are damn near grown. And when I say to them, particularly the dudes, I'm like, you're not the legal father of your child, right? And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, you are
Nah,
not.
bro.
Not in the state of Georgia. It is a total shock. And here's where it gets sticky for mom. Because it is a civil process, he comes to our program, he gets served, and he wants to legitimize his children. We walk him through the legitimation process. He fills out the petition, and then he takes the petition to Superior Court in order to get the children legitimized. If he hasn't said anything to her about this process, she is going to find out, because the process is she has to be served by the sheriff this legitimation paper. And ladies, you can just write in the chat what your response would be if you came into the office, or someone, or sheriff rolled up to the
When
door,
it at
and
your at
there's a petition for your children. You don't know what is happening. You don't know if he's trying to come after your children. You don't know if he's trying to come after you. You don't know what the deal is. And so part of the work, Charles, is when we're working with these fathers to make sure that we are giving them the information and the opportunity to call our office, so that we can explain to them the legitimation process, so that they
yeah.
understand what it is, so that when they're served, they don't think that he's trying to do anything funny.
Right. That's deep and that's important because there's so many layers to that part of the conversation, right? Like, um, Okay, so this is the question. So we got a lot. This is like I said. Let me say this disclaimer, y'all. We asked Ken for 30 minutes this evening, right? And we're going on a full hour. And I'm gaining just as much, if not more, from this conversation than all of you all. So thank you all for sticking with us, and Ken, thank you for being so generous with your time. Um, the question this young lady asked is, I'm kind to I'm gonna do two for you rapid fire. One, Ken. She asked, who does the decision making fall to? Is it the maternal grandmother? That was the question. And another question that was asked is, do you have resources for families, parents that are getting separated?
Yeah. So to the first question, typically that's how it happens. It falls to the paternal side of the family. Typically, in this case that I was just talking to, that was the fight that he was having. He was having the fight with the grandmother because the child fell into was under, she got temporary custody of the child, the maternal grandmother. So typically that's what happens. But that's kind of, when you think about this legitimation thing, and when I say fathers don't have the legality over their children, the entire paternal side of the family doesn't exist as far as the law is concerned. So not even his parents can say anything, not his brothers, his
Yeah.
siblings, his aunties. They're totally cut off. And glad you asked. We created this document. This document is called Dad's Co-Parenting Compass, a Guide to Better Communication and Collaboration. It was written with respect to dads in general, specifically, but when you read it, it helps across the board. You can go to papauniversity.com to our library and download this. We also have another one that we created for this situation. And both of these, a lot of stuff that we create comes out of conversations I have with people, or it comes out of a question that I get on him or on here, and I say to myself, "Ooh, that's new. I need to create something for that so that when someone calls, they can get it." But
Yeah.
there was a week, almost a week, where I had like two conversations or maybe three conversations with friends of mine, longtime friends, that I never knew they had children. And they just kind of brought it up. It's like, yeah, they was asking me for advice, and they said, "Yeah, my oldest son." I'm like, "Wait, what? You got an older son?" And so they start telling the story, and so I realized that this issue around co-parenting is not just when children are young. Sometimes it goes on so long that fathers don't even get to thinking about how to reconnect with their children until they become adults. By that time, the hill is even higher to climb over,
Sure. Sure.
because now the person is not climbing over just the mom mountain. They're
Yeah.
now climbing over the mountain that that child has created as a result of that. And so we created this piece, rekindling the fatherhood connection. And this one is also on Papa University, and it talks about the impact of long-term absence in a child's life, and the things
Mhm.
that you should consider before you even approach the child, the things that
Wow.
you should
Wow.
be doing when you don't have access to the child. Like a lot of guys come in to us for services, and they'll say, the mother of my child won't even let me see my child. I can't see him. And our response to them is, we're going to send you through a process to which you're going to communicate with your child every day. Your child just may not be able to see your messages now, right? The anticipation is that someday she's going to come and she's going to ask you a question, and you have to be able to answer that in a way that they can observe, or absorb. And so every holiday, you should buy them a card, even if you don't have the ability to get it. So put them in a shoebox. Every birthday, you should put money in an envelope in a savings account. Every whatever the case may be, you should
Mm.
purchase just like you have full access to them. You know
Wow.
what? Periodically, if a new Pixar movie comes out and you're like, man, you hurt because you can't take your child, go to the movie by yourself and buy two tickets. Take the ticket that you went with, tear it in half, and put the other one whole in a box, so that when that child comes back to you and say, "Dad, did you ever think about me?"
Ooh.
my child, I've always thought about you. You see these unripped tickets right here? These are tickets that I wish and prayed you was with me and you weren't. And I went because I wanted the memory of you, even if I didn't have the presence of you. Right? That is and because at some point the child's gonna ask the question. They either gonna say, like I did to my dad, how come you didn't search for me? How come you didn't come and find me? And he had no answer. And the little bit of compassion that I had for him at the time broke when he couldn't answer that question. So I tell dads that you have to, regardless of what you're going through, with the other parent, you have to function in ways. And sometimes you got to journal. You got to write letters. Today, I learned something about parenting that you wasn't here, and I wrote this down, thinking about you. Or today, I did something special, and I was right. So you pull that child and you walk them along with you in a journal. And so when they say, "Did you ever think about me?" Yes, I have. Here's a journal that I wrote in every day a letter to you because I did not have the ability to talk to you in person. Now, here's what happens at the end of the day, and this is what moms don't know. Keeping your children separated from a man who does that is going to come back on you in a way that you're not expected to. Because now you got to answer questions.
Got to answer for it. You got to
Now you
answer.
got, and that happened between me and my mom. My mom didn't tell me stuff, and I went in my whole life thinking my father didn't care about me, thinking my father abandoned me until she told me when I was 50 years old that it wasn't him that left. It was her family who sent her to New York from North Carolina so that he couldn't find her. And it impacted my relationship with my mother. I didn't speak to her literally, Charles, for almost 2 years.
Okay. My God.
Right. And so this parenting thing is not something to be played with. It's not a social media content. It's not a game of argument that we have on Instagram and podcasts. It's not these things that I'm seeing now.
Sensationalism.
I said,
Me
yeah,
versus
that's the
you. Yeah,
word.
like
Thank
this
you. Thank you.
clickbait, sensationalism.
Yeah,
Like,
thank
yeah,
you.
like,
It's not that. Stop playing with this stuff. This is not to be played with, to be playing with people's emotions. This, I believe, Charles, the work that we're doing specifically with dads and with moms, but with parents in general, is the hardest, most emotional work you will ever do.
yeah, yeah,
And that ain't taken away from things like breast cancer awareness and all those other things. But when you are talking about people's children, the emotion that's wrapped up in two individuals that love their child equally and the same, and there's tension between the two of them, it is ugly and it gets ugly,
yeah,
real ugly, particularly for individuals that don't have what we're calling co-parenting maturity.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So,
Ken, that's why I think that all of us are so grateful for the work that you do because you're giving people the tools, right?
mhm,
And I think a lot of the failures, like you said, like I talk a lot about. I think when it comes to me, as I interact and I work to train a new generation of doctors and providers, and I use my experience to try and teach them. I ask myself. There's not a day that goes by that I don't ask myself, what if this, what if this, what if
mhm,
these resources were available? What if this person led with a certain type of compassion? What if there was technological things that were utilized? And that's the same thing. It's kind of that same thing, Ken,
mhm,
is that when it's like you shared, and thank you so much for sharing your story, right?
mhm.
And being so transparent and vulnerable. But it's one of those things like, what if your father had the resources that you provide?
Yeah, I get that all the time, bro. People like older guys always say, "Man, I wish you were around with my father." was raising
You
me.
understand what I'm
Oh, I
saying?
wish you were around when I had my child. People, even moms say that, man, I wish you were around for my dad, or I wish you were around for my first husband, or I wish you was here for my cousin. It's amazing that we have not equalized the support in a holistic way for parents.
Yeah,
Right. And a lot of it is connected to history, it's connected to racism, it's
yeah,
connected to slavery, it's connected to all of those things have an impact. But while they have an impact, it shouldn't have a bearing on the work that we're trying to accomplish moving
right.
forward because now we know what it is. Now we know how we've been impacted. Now the question is, how are we going to build the resiliency to be able to do the right thing regardless of the impact?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
when we're at our best.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, brother. And I'm just so incredibly grateful and appreciative. Can please share with everybody how they can get in touch with you, how they can support you, and how they can find all these resources that you shared with everybody?
So as the young folks say, Google me. Uh, Kenneth Braswell, and thank you so much for those of you who are following me. I can be an overloader of information. People start following me and they like me and they think that I'm just posting for the next, month or so. And you realize that, dude, man, this dude is like posting every day for the last 15 years. Yeah, I am relentless in
Relentless.
this work. I'm relentless in this stuff. So supporting me means put your boots on. And I think the way that you can support is always informing others, particularly people in your circle and men in general that are in need of correcting their lives. Send them to us. Like don't hold on to the resource. Don't hold on to you have an idea, you have a place for them to go. Send them to Fathers Incorporated. We have a couple of websites. We have our Fathers Incorporated website. Our fathersincorporated.com website kind of tells you who we are. If you go to our gentlewarriorsacademy.com website, that is where our service takes place, our direct service. That's where our intake forms are. That's where people come to actually get services. If you go to papauniversity.com, that is where our resources are. And the reason that we split all of those things up is because all of those things touch different audiences. And what we know about social media, Charles will tell you this, is that you have to streamline, you have to separate your issues from one another because if you don't, it messes with the algorithm and then nobody is seeing anything that you're doing. So you have to kind of split up your audiences. And then the
Yeah.
last one, if you don't believe anything I'm saying, we also have a research arm, which is the Moynihan Institute for Fatherhood Research and Policy. And so if you go to the moynihaninstitute.org, you will find all of the papers, all of the research, all of the data, all of the things that solidify everything that not only I'm saying, but all of the things that Charles and Gabby are saying about For Care for Moms and For Care for Dads. We are research based, evidence based, lived experience minded. And I know that about Charles. I know that about Gabby. And you should know that about me. I'm not shooting off the top of my head or from
Yeah.
my. I bring a life story to the work, but the work is grounded in what I know works and what the research says, and listening to the people that I'm serving to make sure that I'm
That's the word.
giving them what they need and not what I want them to have.
I love that. Evidence based, research based, lived experience minded. That's
Yes.
the word, brother. Listen, I'm so grateful for you, man. Um, like I say, man, I love you to life. I'm grateful for who you are, what you bring, but just what you meant to me personally, man. You inspire me um to understand what's possible, right? To understand, like to see what you built from a vision in a space where this space did not existed, you created it.
Mhm.
And I feel that I've been in a lot of times places where I feel that way about this space around maternal health. And when it seems dark, when you don't necessarily see a path forward, looking at the work and the legacy that you're building, is always extremely inspirational to me. So we're grateful for you, and we just want to thank you for the time, brother. And I'm just really excited to continue to walk lockstep. And yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do, and I've been. There's been one question, and I've taken so long, and if
I'm
this
good.
indulge
I
me
got nothing going on. The Knicks have already won the
one.
championship, so I don't need to go
This is the
watch the
last
game.
one.
I'm
This is the
good.
last one. And if you and if anybody, I think back as you've been sharing, Ken, I've been thinking about that child that you spoke about. Um, Meaning that you're never sure when the person that needs you most will be a father to the child that will change the world, change our future, change our community. Um, and what I want to know from you, Ken, is what does that future of fatherhood look like through your eyes for that child when the time comes, when you have laid the groundwork for this generation of services, and when when the harvest comes, what
Mm,
does that look like for that child?
I think that first, know that the concept of that is biblical.
Mm,
And if you want to see that story play itself out, read the little bit that the Bible talks about with respect to Joseph.
yeah,
Not the Joseph of the many colored coats. I'm
yeah.
talking about the Joseph that was approached to say, you need that that your wife is gonna have a baby and it ain't gonna be
It ain't no
yours.
yours, but you gonna rock with this, bro.
and
Faith,
you need to take
faith.
care of it. Any dude be like, what? Like, oh hell no, that ain't even how it's gonna go down. And you gotta think about the character that he had to understand that and know that that was something that he had to do because that boy needed a male role model in his life over the 30 years that they were together. Now, the scripture doesn't tell us what happened over the 30 years. We can only surmise that whatever Joseph had in him was intended to be placed in Jesus. That's the only thing that we know. And that what the man that Jesus became is a reflection of the man who stood in the gap to raise him over those 30 years. So my goal of what I want to see ultimately in the work that I'm doing is not just looking for the one Messiah,
Mm.
but believing that they all are the Messiah.
And on that note, believing that they are all this Messiah. Listen, you all, please, please, please. Thank you all. Those of you, I've seen people coming and going and dropping in and taking these nuggets. But that's the one right there, brother. We're grateful for you, man.
Yeah,
Believing that
appreciate
they
you.
are all the Messiah, man.
Yeah,
Ken Braswell, thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. And I'm
thank
looking forward to the next time you and I get to share space together, man.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you to everybody that's joined us,
let's
and we will
go.
see you soon. Reach out, tap in, follow, support, and listen. Share these resources with a father in your life that you know that needs them, man. Because these tools really can make all the difference for not just just this generation, but generations yet to come.
Yeah, thank
Peace
you.
and love, man. Everybody,
All right.
thank you so much, brother.
Good night,
Appreciate
y'all.
it.
All right. Bye.